A key component of the modern world economy, the chemical industry delivers products and innovations to enhance everyday life. It is also an industry in transformation, where chemical executives and workers are delivering growth and industry-changing advancements while responding to pressures from investors, regulators, and public opinion. Discover how leading companies are approaching these challenges here on The Chemical Show. Join Victoria Meyer, president of Progressio Global and host of The Chemical Show, as she speaks with executives across the industry and learns how they are leading their companies to grow, transform, and push industry boundaries on all frontiers. Here's your host, Victoria Meyer.
Hi, this is Victoria Meyer, host of The Chemical Show. I am glad to have you here with me this week, and I'm glad to have you listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube. The subscribers are growing every week. I'm getting great feedback from people, so love it. If you haven't yet subscribed to the show, please do so that you don't miss any episodes. You can subscribe on YouTube or one of a variety of podcast players. And remember to share your favorite episode with a friend or a colleague. So over the past several months, we've been on a journey talking with different leaders across the chemical industry and finding out their perspectives and insights on their chemical business, key trends, leadership, and more. And one of the things that really ties these companies and leaders that I've spoken with together is this focus on the customer and the customer experience and how they create unique and differentiated value through that experience. So they may not have actually called it the customer experience. Instead, they've talked about relationships, community, creating opportunities for success, innovation, taking care of customers, using digital tools to make business easier, many things, all of which are actually elements or descriptors of the customer experience, just components of it. And that's what we're going to be talking about here on the podcast today. This is going to be a solo cast. So just me sharing some insights that I've gained from these leaders and also some perspectives about the customer experience with clients that I work with today and in the past. So what is the customer experience? What we're talking about here is really how chemical companies can create value through a differentiated experience. Why is this important, right? So maybe that's a good place to start. Why are we talking about this? The customer experience is a key differentiator for your business, right? And with that differentiated experience, you create value, you earn more business, you build customer loyalty, and you can retain customers. You really set yourself and your company apart. And a lot of this focuses in around human-centered design. We hear about human-centered design, certainly in other industries, less so than in the chemical industry, but it's really about how the people that we interact with in these businesses, in our own companies, in the companies that we interact with as customers and suppliers, the experience that they get in doing business with your company. Products are easy to replicate, right? So any good chemist can go and figure out how to make a similar product. There's a lot of commodity chemicals. And even in the specialty market, there's a lot of similarities across products, but products can be replicated. But behaviors and experiences are not easy to replicate. And defining that unique customer experience and being very deliberate about your customer experience becomes a key differentiator and value creator for successful chemical companies. And I really like to talk about the customer experience as being by choice and not by chance. Because I guarantee every one of you that's listening has experienced this, right? So your company has a defined, maybe not defined, but a unique customer experience. Businesses that you work with, your B2B suppliers, but also if you think about it in the B2C world, you have a distinct experience and expectation with different companies. And it's built around the experience. And there's a lot of nuances with it, but there's also a lot of distinctive aspects. And sometimes it occurs by happenstance. It's just the way it's evolved. And other times it's really by choice. And it's the by choice part that we're going to be talking about today. So let's maybe just get down to the basics a little bit of what is customer experience. A lot of times you see it abbreviated if you read any literature and stuff as CX. So CX is the customer experience. And it really focuses on the relationship between a business and its customers. And it includes every interaction, no matter how brief, whether or not it involves in a purchase, it's beyond customer service, right? It's not just the end-to-end process for how you start engaging with a customer from supplying product to invoicing. It's the hows. One of the articles I read recently said customer experience is the overall perception of your brand in the eyes of your customer, built on the accumulated interactions they have with your business across various platforms and people, right? So it's everyone you come in contact with. It's your website. It's your e-business platform. It's the suppliers that deliver to your customer site, the logistics handling. It's every aspect of it builds into your customer experience. Cameron Whaley, who I spoke to earlier this year on episode 16 of The Chemical Show, articulated it this way, said, customer experience doesn't end when the order is placed. The whole fulfillment part of that order, the delivery, ensuring that your trucks show up with the right equipment at the right time, with the right behaviors, they're all part of that customer experience, and it matters. And it does. Well stated. Thanks, Cameron. I think we're at a really critical transformation point in the chemical industry, right? And as it relates in particular to customer experience. And this is really driven in large part by human expectations, right? Our employees, our customers, our suppliers, the experiences that we have in our day-to-day personal life and how that translates into expectations we have in our business life and our business interactions. So that's one facet. Technological advancements, especially when we think about the Internet of Things, digitization, and how that drives knowledge sharing, and just the experience. And then even resource availability. So in many cases, we have a shortage of resources, and those resources could be people, it could be products and platforms, but that all drives the need for transformation. And in a post-pandemic world, the customer experience becomes even more critical because the competition is increasing, because digital commerce is reducing some of that traditional relationship power, or maybe it's just shifting it. And really because our people are changing, our personal experiences are changing, and those personal experiences translate to the business experiences that we want. So a recent Google study, a report from Google said that 50% of today's B2B buyers, among them are chemical buyers, are millennials, born between 1981 and 1996. And they range right now from 23 to 38 years old or thereabouts. They expect more seamlessness across channels. So we're going to talk about channels in a little bit, but channels being when we think about our chemical customers and suppliers and the engagements that we have, it's phone, it's face-to-face, it's digital, it's email, it's a variety of things. There's an expectation of more seamlessness. Many people have grown up having a seamless experience when you think about things like apps that we have on our phones, right? And Sebastian Brenner, who I just interviewed just a few weeks ago, was on the podcast. Sebastian, of course, is the head of Chemondis, one of the largest digital marketplaces for chemicals in Europe. And one of the things Sebastian said when I asked him, like, what drove this for you? Why did you want to engage in Chemondis? And he said, while I'm using in my private life these platforms, and these platforms are things like Amazon and Netflix and Google and other things, these platforms and tools to a very large extent in my personal life, why is not that the case in my business life? Why am I not able to engage in the same way? And that, of course, was one of the driving forces behind Chemondis, which is doing great role in providing a great service to chemical companies in Europe. But this expectation that the service that we get, the experiences that we have in our personal life, we bring them into the work life. And we have some expectations of the companies we do business with, of our chemical companies, that things are going to be a little bit more seamless and easier. And it changes the relationship and it changes the experience that customers are looking for and that chemical companies need to deliver. And I think that gets me to this point of the importance of customer experience is not new. This has been around forever, for as long as we've had customers, but the customer experience expectation is changing. Who's driving that expectation is changing, right? So I think in a world where there was a lot more supplier power, companies set their experience standards. Again, either deliberately or just by happenstance. And they expected their customers to comply and their employees to comply and stuff. And that's changing. People have an expectation that they're having a say in what that experience is, and that experience is being driven elsewhere. So while this is not new, the whole role of CX and customer experience is not new, it is a blind spot for many companies and many executives. And part of the reason for that is, if we think about it, particularly in the chemical industry, for a long time, for years, our customers, our suppliers have trained us to believe that it's all about product and price, and that our competitors can readily replace it. And where it's not all about product and price, there's still this opportunity for replacement really easily. And yet, the how of doing business, the customer experience, is different from what your competitors are and creates significant value. We know that. When you go and you talk to your customers, and as I've gone and talked to chemical customers in a variety of industries, that experience is really distinctive. I was doing work for a materials company recently and went out and talked to some of their customers about what is it that they really liked and what they appreciated. And one of the things they says, no matter what, I know that they're going to get this done. When I put a hard test to them, when I need more product, when I'm in short supply, when it's challenging, I know that they're going to come through reliably. That's not always true of their competitors. That's a distinction. That's a differentiation that creates value. Being really focused on your customer experience and your customer experience strategy is about recognizing those differences and leveraging it. And that's it. When you start to recognize, and companies and leaders start to recognize those unique value differentiators and are very deliberate about the customer experience, you maximize your business value and your customer value. So how do you get there? And how do you build that? Now, when I talked with Mike Suver earlier this year, one of the things he said when I asked him about the customer and how they support their customers and grow value, his perspective was, you've got to service the heck out of the customers. You be clear in your value proposition to your customers and deliver upon it. That's absolutely true. And actually, I would say there's really 5 points to think about, which is, one is, what's your goal? What's your goal when you start looking at your customer experience strategy and getting very deliberate about it? Is it to change the experience fundamentally, or is it really to improve it at the margins, to improve and take it to a new level, or is it to totally reshape it? That's something you need to understand.
We'll be right back. At Ecovist, they're accelerating the transition to a sustainability-driven future. Their long history of innovation, expertise, and customer collaboration supports the development of proprietary catalysts and services across their 2 industry-leading businesses, Advanced Materials and Catalysts and Eco Services. Advanced Materials and Catalysts is a leader in proprietary and customized technologies for polymers, cleaner fuels, emissions control, and circularity. Eco Services is the largest North American recycler of spent sulfuric acid. Ecovist, your catalyst for positive change.
What's the gap between the needs and wants of your customers and what they actually experience? Do you know what that is? Do you know what your customers really want? How do you differentiate versus competitors? Right? And I've already said differentiation is really a key when you look at this. That drives value. It drives customer loyalty. It drives more business. Fourth, at which point in the experience should you really concentrate? So where should your focus be in order to have a real impact? One of the opportunity spaces right now, especially for a lot of mid-sized companies, is really in this digital strategy space. And digital is one component of the customer experience. It's not the entirety of it, but upping their game. Ron Zmick, he talked about this, about the need that they were focusing in. Palmer Holland is focusing on building a portal approach to really up their game in their relationship with their customers, to provide a more seamless experience, to deliver a lot of the information that they were looking for in a more seamless way. that's an option. That's an area of focus that you could choose to have. And then the fifth topic in question here is, how do you want your overall capabilities of your staff to support the customer experiences that your company wants to provide? What does your staff need to do? So you can define this great customer experience, but if your people can't execute upon it, well, that's maybe not the best thing. So focusing in on that area. So one, knowing your customers, their needs, their wants, what they value in an interaction, what they value in your business, right? So this could be everything from voice of the customer work, more insightful customer surveys or conversations, using your data. So most companies today have a lot of data about business and transaction and interactions online and offline, using that data to understand more about what your customer wants and values. Secondly is around knowing your own strengths. And that's really almost an assessment or a survey of your own team. What makes you different? What's the value that you bring? Where do you really differentiate yourself against your competitors, right? So, because CX is a differentiation game, right? So it's about making it seamless, but it's also about differentiating and what's going to drive unique value for you, for your employees, your customers, your suppliers. Defining your employee experience, right? So what's the experience your employees want to have? They're one of your biggest assets. How do you really make that employee experience part of your customer experience? Because there's a lot of people that would say, I would say, that's a really critical component of your customer experience. Back when I spoke with Cameron Whaley, that's one of the things he talked about. He said, we focus on who is doing the work for us. And our job as management or sales or whatever is to go out and make the best opportunities available so that everyone can succeed. Your people want to be successful. The employee experience is part of that success factor. And then the other piece is around, what are your competitors doing? And kind of along those same facets that you're asking your customers, that you're looking at internally. And then what are your competitors doing? What are they doing differently? What are they doing better? What are they doing not as so good? Where is your differentiation opportunity? And then where's the gap? Where's the gap between what you're doing versus what your customer wants, between what you're doing, what your competitors are doing, and how do you want to fill it? And it's digital, it's human, it's it's direct, etc. And then I'd say that the other piece of this, and this is kind of all the staging before you get to your strategy, but consider your options. So you don't want to be everything to everybody. What elements are going to be most effective for you, for your team and your stakeholders? What parts of your customer experience are going to be the same to all customers? And what is going to be different based on segmentation or based on location or the business line? When you think about that, you have choices and you don't have to be everything to everybody, nor do you have the time or the resources, the money to make that happen. So as you've assessed that landscape, right, you've taken these big questions, you've looked at what your customers want, you've looked at what you do and you do well, you've looked at the competitors, you've done a gap analysis, then it's really time to focus in on just aligning and developing your customer experience strategy. I use the word align because a lot of times it's not a big shift. You don't necessarily need to or want to make a huge pivot from what your current experience is, but you need to grow. There is a clear expectation of evolution. And so you need to really be clear about what is that strategy? What is your customer experience approach? And to define that, it's really around having just a clear customer-focused vision. What is it? How will you engage? What tools and resources and approaches are you going to use? And what's the experience? What's the experience that for your customers and employees? What's the value that they're going to recognize? An expert I recently listened to on this said, customer experience is as much as about a feeling as a tactic, right? So it's about, how does your customer feel when they engage with you? And what is it that you want them to feel? Do you want them to recognize that you are a trusted advisor? Do you want them to recognize that you're innovative? Do you want them to recognize that you're easy to do business with? There's a lot of permutations on this, and that vision and that feeling and that experience that you want your customers to have helps you to define the strategy. Customer experience strategy also really gets tied in pretty closely with channel strategy. And of course, the buzz currently, and over the past couple of years, you start seeing people talking about omni-channel strategies. And it's really this recognition that your customers may be interacting with you across multiple channels, right? So digital, and there's a couple of options on digital, right? It may be a marketplace. It may be a portal. It could be serviced by a third party. It could be direct. So digital is absolutely one component of your current strategy. It has to be part of your customer experience strategy. It's part of an omni-channel strategy. Direct. So this is everything about how your sales team, your customer team, your logistics team engages and interacts with your customers. And what does that look like? How and when do they interact and support and engage and create that experience for your customers? And then, of course, distributor and distributor relationships are a really critical part of an omni-channel strategy for chemical companies, especially since distributors reach a very large part of chemical customers and play a big part. So having those categories defined and knowing how they impact and support your experience becomes critical. And then, of course, execution. And for me, execution is everything. So it does you no good to define this beautiful, great customer experience strategy if you can't execute it. So keys to execution are involve your team early in the process. They need to help you develop. The people that are executing this strategy need to help develop the strategy. It can't just be top down, change the world kind of a strategy. It really needs to be reflective of your current capabilities, your current team, your future team, and what they can deliver. But getting your team involved early in the process helps to define this in a more effective way and helps with the execution. Having a really clear playbook. And I was working with a client recently. We talked about they were implementing a new program and services that they were taking to their chemical customers and selling a service package. And they said, okay, well, what happens when they sign up? What are you going to do? What's the playbook? Having a playbook so that you understand your interactions when you've got a new customer, when you've got an existing customer, when something changes, when something doesn't change. How do you adapt? How do you react? What's the communications? What's the experience that that customer has all along the way is really critical. And then getting feedback and adapting, right? So this can't live in isolation. Your customers are going to tell you either directly or indirectly whether they like your experience. The experience that they have, it comes through customer loyalty. It comes through referrals. It comes through departures of customers. You will get feedback one way or another. It's better to seek it, bring it back in and adapt it and move with that. So that's customer experience. And like I said, to start this, I think this is a key topic. My guests here on the Chemical Show have been talking about it, and I think we'll continue to be talking about it. And I've really enjoyed sharing some thoughts with you on this today. We are going to be covering this topic in some upcoming podcasts, and we're going to be focusing some more on customer experience and bringing in some specific experts to share their insights and perspectives in this area. So stay tuned. In the meantime, I'd love to hear your feedback. Shoot me an email, send me a message on LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you and love to get that feedback, and keep sharing the podcast. And if you haven't yet done so, please follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast player. That is the fastest way to ensure that you get the latest episode as it gets published. And thank you for listening to The Chemical Show. I'll talk to you soon.
We've come to the end of today's podcast. We hope you enjoyed your time with us and want to learn more. Simply visit thechemicalshow.com for additional information and helpful resources. Join us again next time here on The Chemical Show with Victoria Meyer.